Picture space, central perspective, is a conceptualization, an imposed geometry, a stand-in for experiential encounter. It's some sort of abbreviated and abstracted summary of what can be deduced about the scene. The same is actually true of optical projection. These summaries may be useful, but they keep a massive amount from us pertinent to our relationship with the real. We should get back to first-hand accounts from the human umwelt. Our near total reliance on photographic media and its information capture systems must be re-evaluated. It's clear that instrumentation does not stand in for experiential reality. As the philosopher Merleau Ponty identified, the lived perspective that we actually perceive is not a geometric or photographic one. The so-called deformations seen in artwork are showing us flashes of an underlying perceptual structure that is not pictorial. We generate vision, and the cues we diagnose from the light array play out there. In one sense, the piece of paper is an object, of course, in just the same way that a vase is. But we have developed an ability to suppress its physical continuity with the environment, to read marks rendered on its surface as though they represent real objects like vases, pipes, and faces. The blank sheet holds the potential of notional space, the potential for fiction, and creative engagement through that fiction. These activities tell us about the world and ourselves as biological systems. This is not an edge. These are not lines. They do not stand in as elementary stimuli from which the perceptual system would naturally establish line or edge. Our relationship to them is preformed. It may be an elementary stimulus for the conceptual system, a representation of a designated line presented for recognition. The stimulus is not the reduction of a notional reality to an elementary construct that can be deployed to test the visual system. It just confirms to us that the conceptual realm, fed by the perceptual system, is not the same thing as perceptual reality. The perceptual system is open to the universe. Artists reveal that there are no lines or edges until we designate them from all that's occurring to us. I use the drawn line here as Cézanne uses it, to denote the probability that a situation where these considerations, the donations of line, lie on the surface of the paint, and they do not guide the placing of the paint. The lines were not somehow transcribed from the real. They were perceptually arrived at, following presentation and evaluation. They were the result of processes that are in part subjective. The lines were not detected, they were conceived of. What's depicted in the intuitive record has next to nothing to do with optical projection or picture space. This is vision space. It has always been important for us to engage in first-person creative processes, as they indicate not just the depicted subject matter, but also how we are thinking about the world. Through this activity, we engage with our environment and ourselves, manifesting the relationship we form with the real. This relationship is reality. Reality occurs to us and not to a rock or to our instrumentation. The rock is real, as is the camera. The function of the camera produces pictures, according to the physics of optical projection alone. We are not involved until we look at the record. What we look at is predetermined. Paintings, on the other hand, communicate our engagement with the real, to others who are similarly equipped, a shared umwelt, to recognize and identify with both the processes involved, together with the subject matter being depicted. Both these elements constitute content. Traditionally, these intuitively derived processes are then adopted and deployed by others not directly engaged in their realization as communication tools, the carriers of content or meaning. Hence, a new form of illusionary space is a big deal. It changes the fundamentals of how we communicate while revealing new aspects of our developing relationship with the real. The invention of the camera interfered with that relationship. I posed the following question on ResearchGate recently to almost complete silence. Has the invention of the camera been the biggest single roadblock to our developing understanding and the progress of knowledge? Vision space is a new form of illusionary space that re-establishes the linkage between us and information display. It's potentially a Renaissance moment, presenting a paradigm shift for our communication systems and the way we interact with them. For the cave painters, the walls of the cave were not equivalent to blank sheets of paper. Their marks, the caves being part of the world they inhabited, were attempts to rationalize their lives lived within the world. There weren't any pieces of paper, no abstract space to be filled, and they were not abstracted from the world as third-party observers in their execution. They often found the contours of animals in the rock surfaces and then embellished. Their work was less a fiction and perhaps more embodied action within the world. My family, and I'm sure so many others, still engage in this process by finding animal and bird forms in naturally forming tree roots. It's fun, but this level engagement with the world has had profound implications. For the Renaissance picture painters, setting out perspective views on canvas and pieces of paper, there was indeed an abstract space, and they were envisaging third-party observation of the world. Paradoxically, perhaps, the start of the so-called art-science divide. The world was there to be viewed and represented through geometry and central perspective. There was no place for subjective content. The projected real became reality, and the real was there to be poked and prodded, and the processes migrated to observation at remote scales. The fundamentals governing optical projection have been projected over visual process. Instrumentation and information display systems extended the conceit to form so-called virtual reality, where the notional aspect of the system being deployed was entirely forgotten. The ontology of third-party observation creates a hall of mirrors. For the modern artist, these representations proved hollow. They were not actually presenting how we realized our environment, or even to some extent what we were realizing about it. It became important again to address the relationship we form with the real and reconnect with the formation of experiential reality. Recording pictures is not linked to the human umwelt. So around the 18th century, artists started the process of re-engaging with the realm of image making, where we as biological systems generated and recorded experiential reality, rendering visible evidence of our relationship with the real. We as sentient beings are embedded within our environment in complex ways, as we are in these paintings. Our instrumentation isn't. For us to make sense of the world and universe, we need to come to terms with what's actually involved in an act of observation. It's between us and the real. We need to deploy the understandings that tumble from the engagement, because the information about what's real out there is brought to us by light. By addressing a piece of paper differently and linking this to the work of key scientists, developing pertinent insights into the nature of vision and experiential reality, we can set about systemization of the processes to develop information display that does work in accordance with our perceptual system. So no more unmade beds and stuffed fish masquerading as visual art.